We can now talk to John Rees. He's an anti-war activist joining us live there in London. Thanks very much indeed for being with us. Now, Gaddafi's government has declared a ceasefire. So, in effect, military force has worked before it's even started, hasn't it?
Well, I don't think the Gaddafi government is observing a ceasefire. I think if you're under threat of imminent air attack, you might say this and then continue to conduct military operations. And I believe that that's the situation in Libya today. So, no, I don't think it has.
Do you think it's the right thing, though, that there should be a no-fly zone and that indeed there should be further military intervention now to help the people in Libya?
No, I think it's a mistake. Most of all, I think it's a mistake for the revolutionaries. I understand why, under the threat and the rhetoric of imminent annihilation by the Gaddafi regime, they might be driven to this conclusion. But I think it's going to prove to be an error. First of all, in the light of this, for the first time in the mainstream media, certainly in this country, we're actually hearing how limited Gaddafi's forces are. Perhaps 10,000 soldiers. That would mean that in terms of taking Benghazi, for instance, which Saif al-Islam Gaddafi talked about yesterday, which the British media have trailed for 2 days now, saying that Benghazi would be attacked within 24 hours, and it hasn't happened. We've now got some idea why not, because perhaps Gaddafi has some 5,000 or 6,000 troops to range against a city which is armed and in revolution, which actually has got 1 million inhabitants. There's absolutely no way that could practically be done by that kind of military force. So I think the rhetoric of the imminent threat to the revolution has been raised to excessive levels in order to justify the Western intervention.
But therefore, no matter how big or small that military force is, there are reports that Gaddafi's military has slain a lot of the Libyan citizens. So how do you stop that sort of action continuing? Surely violence has to be met with violence. You can't just sit back and let it happen.
Well, I certainly think that's true, but if you follow closely the reports coming out of Libya in the last 48 hours, you will see that, for instance, the revolution gained an air force during that period. You will know that there have been hundreds of defections from the Gaddafi forces, that they've gained a significant number of tanks, that they've intercepted weapons at sea designed for Gaddafi and diverted them to Benghazi. We know from reports that the Egyptian army has been supplying arms to the administration in Benghazi. So I don't think that the civil war has proved to be as one-sided as people said, and I don't think that where the no-fly zone, there's going to be any royal road opened up the revolution can make it all the way to Tripoli. I think the Western powers are determined to intervene here, not to save a revolution, but to stop a revolution.
What if Gaddafi's troops actually recognise the ceasefire, but the rebels continue fighting? Where does that place Britain and France, do you think?
In a mess. But I hope that's exactly what they do, because, as I say, Britain and France have absolutely no interest in the revolution being victorious all the way from the east to Tripoli and to the west of Libya. They do not want to see a successful revolutionary regime in Libya. They're intervening in order to freeze the process of revolutionary change at a certain point, which is not fundamentally threatening to their interests. So I very dearly hope that the situation is this, that however much I might be against a no-fly zone, if it has in any way bolstered the morale of the revolutionary side, that they do not accept any ceasefire, that they take full advantage of any discomfort that it gives to Gaddafi, and that they head straight for Tripoli and seek to unify their country under a revolutionary government.
Can I quickly ask you, why has the international community concentrated all its efforts on Libya at the moment, when we're actually seeing fighting going on in Bahrain and Yemen, casualties there? Why are these countries being treated in a different way, or in fact largely ignored?
Yes, indeed, it's a very good point. I understand as many as 40 people have died in Yemen in a single day today, so we could well be asking all the questions that we're asking about the situation in Libya of Yemen, and we could certainly be asking them in Bahrain, where Saudi and other Gulf states have intervened militarily to crush the revolution. I believe that the answer is this, that the argument for intervention, essentially humanitarian intervention, which was born in Kosovo, was significantly depleted as an effective political argument by the experience of Afghanistan and Iraq. I believe that some of the Western governments think that because the revolutions in the Arab world are popular with their domestic audiences, because nobody in Britain wants to see the Libyan regime crushed by Gaddafi, that they have a popular argument for intervention once again.
Just quickly, John, before we finish, Afghanistan and Iraq, US intervention there, and also the obviously NATO alliance, but here we're seeing support from the Arab League, the neighbours of Libya. That surely makes a big difference, just finally.
Well, we did see that in the first Gulf War as well, and the sanctions regime which followed that, and the no-fly zones which followed that, killed 1 million Iraqis. So I don't think that's a particularly effective example. It tells rather more on my side of the argument than it does on that of my opponents.
John Rees, very good to talk to you. Thank you for joining us live there in London from Stop the War Coalition.